Peace. Islam. LAOA. Sheekamauga Alamassee-El. Coming at y'all live. Deep down. Alamassee Arabian country. Deep in Arabia. Live from so-called Phoenix City, so-called Alabama. Right across from so-called Columbus, so-called Alabama. But in reality, if you really do the knowledge, the so-called Columbus is Phoenix City, is the old town of Coweta, old Creek town, old so-called Creek Mekasuki town. It's Coweta town, you know what I'm saying? Old town of international diplomacy. And of course, for all you goofball abos and goofy so-called fake black Indians, there's no Aboriginal or so-called fake black Indian town of international diplomacy. Only the moles can claim international diplomacy because these are the Barbary states. So y'all have nothing. Y'all literally nobodies. But anyway, in LAOA, in case you're wondering what LAOA stands for, in the old, as we redisperse ourselves back across the terrain, you know, it comes with new language, upgraded frequency and style of dress, and just all type of redrawing the maps and everything. But LAOA means lames are outlawed in Arabia, you know what I'm saying? That means it's the land of the moles and everybody else is lame, you know what I'm saying? So if your frequency is very watered down, very European or whatever, you are literally an outlaw and the bottom of society in Arabia, you know what I'm saying? And we'll go over the science of Arabia in future drops or whatever. But coming at y'all live from another marker, and in this drop, we're kind of gonna go over again. We're gonna continue to drive home that the alpha males all through the old Barbary South and the old Barbary West and all of that have always been the Moors. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna talk about how the old moles under the 5 and the 6 have always been the alpha males, and everybody else, all the rest of the men, have just been punks and bitch-made punks. You know what I'm saying? Just bitches. You know what I mean? Because only the Moors continued to fight in the face of everything. As the the whole corporate demonstration was gaining ground all through the land. And the so-called United States was advancing through the South, through the Creek Wars and everything. Only the Moorish braves kept the insurgency going. You know what I'm saying? Only they kept fighting. Everybody else surrendered like punks. So if you currently are claiming to be an Aboriginal or a fake black indigenous Indian or a fake Pan-African or any of those fake terms, literally you're a punk ass. You know what I'm saying? Like you did not fight. You surrendered and you signed your rights over and you assimilated to be European. You didn't keep the fight up. Let me drive this home. Only the Moors, only the Moorish men, only the Muslims under the 5 and the 6 and the Hebraic and the Islam, they kept the fight up. Everybody else bowed down and surrendered like punks. You know what I'm saying? So the only alpha males and the only real men are the Moors at the end of the day in this demonstration. So again, if you're claiming to be an Aboriginal or you're claiming to be a fake black Indian or any of these fake designations, you literally are a punk ass. You literally are a punk and you surrendered your rights. You know what I'm saying? You didn't keep fighting. Only the Moors kept fighting. And we're going to evidence that through this marker we're about to read. It says 6 Indians hanged, and we're going to talk about how the Moors kept the insurgency going, even in the face of everything, even in the face of all the turncoats assisting the United States advance. And again, we're not, there's no beef or anything. This was really just a civil war and a disagreement between our people. So ain't nobody hating. There's no beef with the United States or anything. But only the Moors fought to maintain the real American culture, which is the Muslim Moorish Barbary culture. That's the true culture of America. Only the Moors fought and died to maintain that. And a lot of you clowns, and let's check this out. It says 6 Indians were hanged in this spot. Now let's check out what's going on. And a lot of you goofies will walk around here and party and BS around with these Europeans. But check this out. This is literally a park. You know what I'm saying? Your ancestors fought, died, and shed blood on this very land. And you got people walking around, tourists walking around, partying, BSing around. And y'all goofy Mississippians be out here doing the same mess on holy ground that your ancestors fought and died for. And I don't never see no Mississippians or no people outside of the real moles coming down here honoring their ancestors and acknowledging none of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Y'all just be walking around partying, BSing around, drinking, eating pork and BSing around, you know what I'm saying, dishonoring your ancestors. And you wonder why you always getting left at the bottom of society. This is literally where you're supposed to come to your sacred ground to honor your ancestors who fought and died so you wouldn't get annihilated in this country. Y'all really ought to be ashamed of y'allself. Only the Mo down here, only the traveling Mo down here documenting this stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's why y'all a bunch of bitches. You know what I'm saying? For real. If you claiming to be an Aboriginal or a fake black Indian, literally you are a bitch. You know what I'm saying? Because you did not fight and die for nothing. Not nothing American. You assimilated and signed your rights over and wanted to be European like a punk. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about the Moorish insurgency that continued after the War of 1812. And we had these new treaties with the United States, and the United States had more extraterritorial rights, and they were advancing you know, and setting up their little posts in their corporate situations in our old Barbary territory. But the Barbary Moors kept the insurgency going. And ultimately in 1842, they won the war. You know what I'm saying? They won the war to the point to where, in Florida and in South Georgia and Alabama, to the point to where the United States, the so-called United States, the northern abolitionists, you know, industrialists had to go regroup, and they had to go back for the next 15 years and just bring in as many immigrants and as many foreigners into the country as possible, so they could so they could get a bigger army and just eventually run down on the South, because they got their ass whooped the first time they came down in the Creek Wars. Because again, understand, the Creek Wars lasted from 1812 all the way to 1860, but really to 1842. And the Southern Barbary Moors won that war. Don't get it messed up, to the point to where the so-called United States had to go back up north. They had to regroup everything, and the Southern secession happened, and all of the lames, you know, they wanted to form the Confederacy and fight with the Muslims all of a sudden. So the Northerners had to literally regroup and let damn near any foreigner immigrant they could let in this country to make the Union Army so big. And we had took so many losses over the years, and our numbers were depleted, that they eventually just outnumbered us. But they had to go back and say, no, we got to bring in way more immigrants, because the Moors down south, we can't beat the Moors down south for what we got going on right now, because they tried. Believe me, they tried, but they lost. And we're gonna see how the brave Moors died, you know what I'm saying, and kept the insurgency going. And again, a lot of y'all are still walking around right now because of these brave Moors that kept fighting and dying for your sorry, ungrateful asses, you know what I'm saying? But check it out, we're gonna read this marker. So it says 6 Indians hanged, okay? Check it out. 6 Indians hanged. It's really 6 Moors hanged. 6 brave Moorish fighters hanged. Because again, let's drive this home. Only the Moors had the connections, the guns, the money to finance an insurgency and keep fighting. There was no fake Aboriginals and fake black Indians. Y'all had no money, y'all had no ties, no plugs, no nothing. Y'all have always been broke bums, you know what I'm saying? All y'all gotta like scheme and run hustles and BS around and be up under Europeans to get money. The Moors were the only ones who could get money on their own demonstration to be able to finance an insurgency. They're the only ones literally that could do it. You lame Aboriginals and blacks, y'all couldn't do none of that. You know what I'm saying? So stop claiming this. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the Moors, you dig? So let's read this mark. Let's check it out. It says, in November 1836, okay. Now we already know what's going on in 1836 was the Creek War of 1836 as well as the Southern Seminole Wars. So that means there was a whole war. They only like to talk about the Second Seminole War, like that was the only war that was going on. But the war was going on all over. It was going on in Alabama. It was an insurgency. You know what I'm saying? It was a counterattack against them running down on us in 1812. The Moors kept it going. You lame Aboriginals and all y'all clowns, y'all gave it up. You feel me? Only the Moors kept it going. You feel me? So let's check it out. So look. Okay, November 1836, because we know the Creek Wars of 1836 were going on. So around the same time in the Second Seminole War, so it was the Moorish army was still bombing all over the South on these Europeans. We were still bombing. Again, y'all don't get treated bad now for nothing. Your ancestors was about that life. They was killing. They was some killers, you know what I'm saying? But they killed for a cause. They didn't just go out here killing, BSing around, running up and down the street, gang banging on each other like dummies. You know what I'm saying? Just wiping each other out like jackasses. And see the difference between you goofies, you goofy want to be blacks and Pan-Africans and Abos is y'all fight with each other. You know what I'm saying? Y'all kill each other. The Moors hold the line against foreigners and stuff like that. We the ones who do that. The rest of y'all are just cowards and punks and turn y'all guns on each other like bitches. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Okay, let's get to it now. It says in November 1836, 6 Creek and Yuchi Indians were hanged near this spot for their role in a last desperate uprising against the frontier whites of Georgia and Alabama. Following decades of provocation from whites, anxious to gain control of their lands. You already know what's going on with that. You know, Europeans wanted to industrialize and move on our land. You know the settlers, you know how they go. The Indians attacked, and gained control of their lands. A small band of Indians attacked and burned the little hamlet of Roanoke in Stewart County, Georgia, killing many of its inhabitants. They also killed several whites in a raid on a stagecoach a few miles south of here, near the bridge over Yuchi Creek. Eyewitnesses said the Indians died bravely, and they caught them and they hanged them. So check this out. So again, they say that 6 Indians hanged, but the Yuchis and the Creeks, these are all Moorish, these are all Muslims. You Aboriginals and fake black Indians, y'all have no religion, y'all have no plugs, y'all have no organization to actually engage in a fight like this. These Muslims They kept bombing, they kept fighting, they kept an insurgency going because they wanted to protect their lands. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to keep the South Muslim. They wanted to keep the indigenous culture, the Moorish old Mississippian culture going in the South. So they wasn't, so even though the army was, the Grand Army was defeated kind of in the War of 1812, and we kind of got, you know, our main force was kind of broken up and dispersed. These Moors of the South kept bombing. They kept fighting. Even so, the War of 1812 and the new treaties ended in 1816. But this is 1836, and these Moors are still bombing on these Europeans. You know what I'm saying? So again, you get treated bad, and you know what I'm saying? They hate niggas, and they hate all that stuff because your ancestors was not no slaves bowing down. Do you think they would hate you so bad if your ancestors was some slaves bowing down? Your ancestors was out here bombing as insurgents. They was lighting these Europeans up, and anybody who was helping them. You know what I'm saying? So literally, and then this is just one incident. This was happening all over the South. You know what I'm saying? All over the South, way up until 1865. They was bombing on Europeans all over the South. That's why none of them were moving down here like that. There were no settlers in the South, in the deep South, because of stuff like this. This was just one instance. They were bombing. Any Europeans and settlers that came down here were risking their lives all the way up until 1865. Because the Moorish braves were the ones that was bombing. And what's interesting is, it even says that eyewitnesses said that the so-called Indians died bravely. So that means that people were inspired. People were inspired, even though they were bombing and killing. They said they killed a lot of whites, and they could have been Christian so-called blacks. It could have been Caucasian Europeans, and it could have been anybody, some Mississippian people who were kind of helping them or just sympathetic to the cause. Because again, the Moorish mafia was in the South. So if whatever town you were in the South, all the way up until 1865, if you was like if you were sitting up here helping Europeans, depending on what town you were in, if you were helping Europeans and being sympathetic to settlers and all that, literally you were risking your life. Because these moles would catch you slipping and bomb on you. Literally, they had to shut that down with the Civil War and bringing in so many immigrants, bringing in so many foreigners into the Union Army to shut that down. That's why they literally put the South under martial law, because they had to shut this down. The insurgency kept going to the point where it defeated the United States in 1842. You know what I'm saying? And they had to go up and regroup and come back. You know what I'm saying? With all the foreigners. That's why they still running foreigners up in here, because they couldn't deal with you all the way up until a certain point. They had to literally open the floodgates in Ellis Island and let everybody come to keep you down. And they still doing that. You know what I'm saying? But check it out. So it said that eyewitnesses said that Indians died bravely. So that's why people people to this day. Your people were engaged in jihad around here. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the whole so-called Indian brave culture comes from. To this day, they still admire the fighting Muslims of the South and the whole country. They still admire the fighting Muslims because these people had no problem dying for the cause. Now, fake marching and playing abos and blacks and all these people, they are cowards and punks. You know what I'm saying? They'll bow down for anything. You feel me? But the braves, the Moors, they were willing to lay down their lives rather than assimilate. Rather than just cower out like punks. You know what I'm saying? So again, it said the Indians died bravely, and this is the type of stuff. This inspired a lot of the turncoats and the people who sat up here and accepted assimilation and all that. They saw the Pookies and the Ray Rays, the thugs, the Muslims that still kept their culture. They saw them out here dying for it. So again, that's eventually what inspired things like Southern secession, because they were like, dang, these boys are still out here dying for this stuff. To the point where they got hanged for it. You know what I'm saying? So because the United States was able to take over certain places and enact certain laws. So yeah, if we bomb, like we used to just bomb on settlers and all that and do whatever we wanted to do to them, but after 1816 there was repercussions. They could hunt you down. They could come after you for stuff like that. And of course they weren't able to just come after our people like that. It's like in this situation, you already know there was some snitches. You know what I'm saying? Some clowns, some Mississippians themselves and Negroes, whatever, snitching on whoever did it. That's how they caught them. You know what I'm saying? But we already know that. We know the game on that. But again, man, 6 Indians hanged in 1836, same time the Seminole War was going on. So that means it was a whole insurgency all over the South that was still going on. And they never put it all the way down until 1865. Believe that. That's why the South got put under martial law. They had to shut the Muslims down because the Muslims would not stop fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like we wasn't with all that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, 6 Indians hanged. Muslims, only the Muslim men fought. And all the rest of you clowns, y'all gave it up. So again, Aboriginal names, they have no claims. They didn't fight. So-called fake indigenous black Indians, they didn't fight. You know what I'm saying? If you're adopting these fake foreign names, you did not fight. Only the Moors fought. You know what I'm saying? Now check it out. You know, and again, we're gonna come back in the daylight and another day on the daylight and really do the knowledge to Columbus, so-called Columbus and Phoenix City. And we're gonna talk about, because this is the, you know, the mighty Chattahoochee. You know what I'm saying? The old part of the river highway system, you know what I mean? But we're gonna talk about how old Coweta Town, which is what this used to be, is just old Coweta Town. This is not Columbus. Columbus and so-called Phoenix City is Cap. You know what I'm saying? That's a new European name. This is old Coweta Town. You know what I'm saying? It's an old Moorish Mississippian town, international diplomacy. So the Moors were running international diplomacy from here. Ain't no fake Aboriginals or none of y'all running no international diplomacy, because you have no international plugs, because you have no international recognition, because you are not nationals, you have no nation. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Just wanted to also do the knowledge to the Battle of Holy Ground that happened in the war, you know, around the time of the War of 1812 when the Creek Wars first kicked off. You know, we're just gonna talk about we're gonna compare, because again, the fact that the site is named Holy Ground just says a lot about whose culture, what the real Southern culture was. It was a Moorish culture. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna talk about the Battle of Holy Ground that happened early in the so-called Creek Wars in 1813. And we're just doing a delineation, and it showed how Aboriginals and fake and all these other designations have no claims. Only the Moors have claims to the Southern Muslim culture. You know what I'm saying? Anything. You feel me? So check it out. So in the Battle of Holy Ground that happened in so-called Lowndes County, so-called Alabama, which is a majority Mississippian county to this day. So, you know what I mean? So the Battle of Holy Ground, and the real name for that section, that Holy Ground, was Ekanakacha. You know what I'm saying? Ekanakachi. Now, Ekanakacha is just an old Mekasuki word for holy ground, a sacred, beloved ground. You know what I'm saying? So again, that right there tells you right there. That also tells you that the only real culture in America, it was a religious, holy culture. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't never seen no Aboriginal claim no religion or no God. You know what I'm saying? So if they had if the so-called Mekasuki and Alabama, the so-called creeks to the south, had a place called Holy Ground, name one Aboriginal that has a culture, that has a religion that they claim. They would have a designation called Holy Ground. That's how you know it was only the Moors. Because only the Moors have associated to religions. All you Aboriginals ain't associated with nothing but the corporatocracy and federal citizenship and 14th Amendment citizenship. That's all y'all are. Y'all are literally nobodies and minorities. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. It says that Holy Ground, so-called Holy Ground, was a fortified encampment. And it was built on a bluff on the Alabama River, just like so-called Morris Bluff, aka Selma. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, and we're talking about the Battle of Holy Ground that happened in 1813. Interestingly enough, it said right before that battle between the so-called Creeks and the United States and some U.S. militias and U.S. militiamen, and when the Creek Wars kicked off, you know what I'm saying? It said that the so-called Creek prophets did ceremonies around the Holy Ground to perform sacraments of protection. You know what I'm saying? Now, if they had Creek prophets on so-called Holy Ground, Ekanachaka, which is an old fortified so-called Moorish Indian village, if they had so-called prophets, who else got prophets? Don't the Moors have a prophet? Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I have never heard of an Aboriginal prophet. I have never heard of a fake black Indian prophet. I've never heard of that. You know what I'm saying? So if they saying the Creek had prophets, the Moors are the only other group of people in America that got prophets. You know what I'm saying? Because we deal with a religion and a God. The rest of y'all clowns is communists. Y'all don't deal with no God. You know what I'm saying? That's why y'all can't claim the culture. Y'all can't claim a real American culture, because you have no culture. You feel me? So check it out. All right, and it's getting dark, so I'm trying to read my stuff. Now it says General Ferdinand Claiborne, following two U.S. defeats at the Battle of Burnt Corn Creek and the Fort Mims massacre, he rounded up about 1,000 militiamen, U.S. militiamen, and about 150 Choctaw. You know, these sell out Mississippians. You already know how that go. You know what I'm saying? And they coordinated a kind of a counterattack on the so-called Red Sticks, because they had some intel on where their encampments were and all of that. Of course, because of the traitors and the sellouts, you know, the snitches. You know what I'm saying? So it said that Claiborne set up in December 22nd of 1813. Claiborne set up an encampment about 10 miles south of Ekanachaka, which is Holy Ground. Okay, and it said when William Weatherford, who was a Red Stick Creek, you know what I'm saying? So he's a nigga with an English name. So, you know what I mean? So that goes to show these people are interchangeable. You know what I'm saying? Just because my name, I have an English name, but I got a holy name. So, you know what I'm saying? So it was literally the same people, all niggas. You feel me? So it said that William Weatherford evacuated. He was leading that Red Stick platoon that was on holy ground. William Weatherford, a Red Stick Creek. He evacuated the women and children, and they just set up guard at the so-called holy ground. And they were eventually attacked by the militia, and the militia they were kind of outnumbered, so the militia killed about 30 or 40 Creeks, but the majority of them got away and continued to fight. So, you know, that just goes to show, like, it was the Battle of Holy Ground. Of course, you know, the United States militia, they won that particular battle. But I just really wanted to talk about Holy Ground, just locations and names like Holy Ground, and making a kind of, you know, connecting that to the fact that the Southern Barbary culture is a Moorish culture because it deals with prophets and religions. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never heard of no Aboriginal or no fake Pan-African having no American prophets. I never heard of it. You know what I'm saying? But the Creeks, they had prophets. You know what I mean? Because it's the warrior prophet culture. You feel me? All right, now, let's see. Now, this is another reason why, this is another thing you have to get back to, because the so-called Creeks, the Southern Moors, they had like they had names like Sacred Ground and Holy Ground. These were recognized sacred sites. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like the so-called Catholic Church. They have recognized religious domains around whatever church or whatever areas they occupy, where they literally can govern themselves based on their own law. You know what I'm saying? Now that just goes to show you that the so-called Creeks the Barbary Moors of the South, they had territories that were recognized under holy domains. That's really where the power lied. That's really where their power was at. Because when you deal with the covenants and religions and stuff, and real religions and stuff like that, you're able to make your own laws and govern yourself based on those covenants. You know what I'm saying? And it's internationally recognized. Now, when they were able to denationalize us, that whole jurisdiction was ceded over, and everything became corporate and incorporated. That's their way of eliminating a holy domain where we were in power and we could make the rules and the laws, and turning it corporate where it could be all industrialized. So your power has always been in a holy domain. You know what I'm saying? Again, this is why all these other clowns, they will never have any say, and they will never get no respect, because they're not dealing with any holy domains. You know what I'm saying? If you're claiming to be these fake terms, Aboriginal, fake Black Indians, Indigenous, or whatever are federally recognized, you are putting yourself under federal corporate jurisdiction. You can only be under holy mandate and be free of all that. That's why anybody who's in the know deals with nationality and religion, or, you know, and then the other people deal with corporate. But by default, if you're not claiming nationality or religion or anything like that, you fall under corporate jurisdiction. You know what I'm saying? So only the Moors have only had the real science. Everything else is just hogwash. You know what I'm saying? It's just bullshit. It's a waste of damn time. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, just wanted to tap in. It's getting dark, but just wanted to talk about the Moorish insurgency. This Moorish insurgency, Barbary Moorish insurgency in the South, lasted from 1816 to 1842. And eventually the Moors ran, because the United States had to leave. The United States Army literally had to leave Florida and leave South Georgia and leave the area and sign no treaties, and had to get the hell up out of here. They regrouped and came back in 1860, 1862 with all the immigrants and all that led in the country, because they had to go regroup and reorganize, because they lost the Southern Barbary Moors, and they lost against the Moorish insurgents of the South. Essentially, even though we took a lot of losses, a lot of our people died. We did a lot of killing too. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's why don't nobody like the Moors. And then a lot of y'all clowns, I guarantee, a lot of these people that's hating now, you know, that come from Mississippian backgrounds and stuff like that, they probably got fake ancestors. They probably descend from ancestors that sold out and joined these militias. Because again, these militias and these Southern militias, these were a lot of the Mississippians were in these militias going against the Muslims. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's just a civil war. I get it. I mean, I'm not putting too much blame. People just go whatever way they want to go. But a lot of y'all are still mad at the Moors because your ancestors probably joined these militias, dealing with Andrew Jackson, dealing with the United States Army and all of that, and went against the Moors, and probably some of your ancestors probably got murked for doing all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? By the Moors that held it down. And y'all mad to this day. That's the type of stuff that was going on, because best believe, a lot of these traitors They might have joined up with the United States, but best believe a lot of their family members got kidnapped and ransomed and all that. A lot of these people got disappeared. It was real in the South back then. It was a lot of killing and stuff going on because everybody was switching sides, and the insurgency was real. It's no different from the 20-year war that the U.S. just came out of Afghanistan with, where they were dealing with the Taliban insurgents. They literally dealt with that type of insurgency all over the American South from 1816 to 1842. You know what I'm saying? Literally. So when you can do the knowledge on the Taliban, that's how your ancestors was rolling. You know, the Muslims was rolling in the South from 1816 to 1842. Just think about it. Just think of it that way. That's why y'all got, again, that's why they was mad as hell at us after the war. And they literally put everybody under lockdown and forced you out of Islam and the Hebraic culture and forced you into Christianity after the war, because we had did so much wilding and we had did so much killing and all that. They were killing us, but we was damn sure killing them. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, just doing the knowledge. And then another tidbit I want to drop before I shut it down is one thing you got to do the knowledge too. Again, we talk about, you know, in the so-called Civil War, how the so-called United States had to let so many people, they had to just bring in millions of thousands, hundreds of thousands of immigrants and throw them in the army to deal with us down south. One of the biggest perpetrators of that was the Russian Tsar Alexander, who literally, he was, and I think, you know, if you do the knowledge to Russian Tsar Alexander, because he kind of traded on the Moors a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because we was always cool with Russia. The Russian Moors was always tight with us, you know what I'm saying? But I think that particular Tsar, you know, he was a little bit more light-skinned, probably mixed, but that particular Tsar, he was kind of salty at the Moors. That's at the Moors around the time of the Civil War, because he had just got finished losing the Crimean War to the Ottoman Turks and their British alliance and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because the Ottoman Turks over there, they was down with us over here in America, you know what I'm saying? The Confederacy, they was down with us. So I think he was a little bit salty. So what he ended up doing was he sent his Navy during the Civil War, he sent his Navy to back up Abraham Lincoln in the Union and all of that. And then he sat up there and he released his entire peasant class from slavery in 1862. And literally the majority, a lot of them started coming over, were released and came to the so-called United States, and they put a lot of them into the Union Army. And best believe they supported, because again, this is my personal conjecture. I think that Tsar was kind of salty at the, I think because he understood that the Ottoman and all that stuff goes from there all the way over here to the American South and the Moors over here. So I think he was a little bit salty. You know what I'm saying? So I think he was a little bit salty at the Moors. So he, you know, of course he backed the Union, but he released all his people. He released all his peasants over there and sent them over here to help shut down the Confederacy. But let me tell you something. One thing that did, and we're gonna do the knowledge to World War I at some point. That's gonna be a long one. But one thing about so-called the Tsars over there, when they did that eventually set in motion their demise. And ultimately, them same peasants, them same Slav peasants that they released, ended up turning on them in about 1817, and they were the ones who set off the Bolshevik Revolution. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, of course, the bankers, the Rothschilds and all them people, they was financing all these wars in Europe and all these wars over here because they wanted to get rid of the nobility, because, again, these people want industrialization. But him doing that in 1862, that literally set up his family to be murdered in 1917, because they were eventually murdered by the Bolsheviks. And the Bolsheviks consisted of all of these peasants that he let go in 1862 that came over here to deal with us. Ain't that ironic? So again, man, stand on your square. It never pays. You know what I'm saying? If you a Mo, just be a Mo. You know what I'm saying? All the way to the bloody end. It is what it is. But anyway, Sheekamauga Alamassee-El, 6 Indians hang, this holy turf, honor your ancestors. They fought for you. You know what I mean? And they kept it gangster. They kept it G. Peace to the 5, peace to the 6, peace to all the real Moors and Muslims. Live from Arabia. I'll tap back in with y'all later.